His reviews will get you further than the film will ever go. If you give him just a moment of your time, he'll let you know which movies rock, which movies stink, which movies shouldn't have been released. Say hello to Confused Matthew.
In all honesty, I really don't know very much about history. Any history, especially the history of war. It just isn't a subject that I've bothered to sit down and learn yet. With regard to World War II, I know almost nothing. I know Hitler lost, but that's about it. And that's from the point of view of my own country, let alone a country that is foreign to me. Into the Storm is an HBO film which portrays World War II as it was overseen by Winston Churchill, who I know absolutely nothing about. So while I thought this movie was very interesting and very well done, I can only comment so much about how it portrays Churchill himself because I have nothing to compare this to. The film depicts two sides of this man, the political side and the side dedicated to winning the war at all costs. In fact, as the film goes on, Churchill labors over the upcoming election every bit as much as he labors over the war. This is a man who quite literally has the weight of the world on his shoulders, vowing never to bow down before the Nazi regime, even when their allies are overtaken and they are hopelessly outnumbered. Churchill is forced to make some very difficult decisions in managing the war, from attacking Allied targets that have been overtaken, to choosing which populations to save and which to allow to fall. The business of managing this war takes its toll on the people closest to him, to say the least. In the beginning, Churchill in his private life is portrayed as a short-tempered, insulting bully who will take you to task over the slightest thing. He's said by those who know him to be a drunken warmonger with delusions of grandeur. Most of the time he seems to be impatient and unwilling to listen. The person who seems most responsible for reigning in the tyrant in Churchill seems to be his wife. She keeps him grounded during the times that he flies off the handle. He will bluster and moan about it, but eventually he'll come back down to earth. They have a very fascinating relationship. What's interesting is that at the times Churchill isn't fighting the war, he's watching movies about war, specifically a movie about Napoleon. This is Churchill's Hitler, and he seems to draw a great deal of inspiration from this particular film. This is one of the reasons people seem to portray him as a dreamer, but it seems like it worked, so who were they really to complain? But the more time we spend with Winston, especially as he gets to know other world leaders, we find that he is much more complicated than that. He has a certain brash charisma and a great deal of wisdom and introspection at times. Even though it may seem he's giving all of these orders callously, he really does feel the weight of these people's lives that are lost in trying to win the war. There are particular moments when he talks to FDR that shows he really can have a light heart and a good sense of humor. He may be cold at times, but he isn't just a brooding monster. Indeed, for all of the talk about battling Hitler, this movie isn't really about World War II at all, and we almost never see a battle in this film. This is about what happened with one man behind the lines. It's difficult for me to say how good the writing is, as it's a retelling of a historical event that I am not familiar with, but as far as what was on the screen, I liked this very much. The acting is top-notch, and the dialogue sounded miles away from scripted. This film also works strikingly well as a period piece. Everything looked, sounded, and acted right, and I never once believed that I was anywhere but in the 1940s. As I said, I know nothing about the real Winston Churchill, and I don't know if this was an accurate portrayal of him or not, but I found this character's struggle absolutely fascinating. Everything rides on this man trying to win the war without destroying his family or his country in the process. He may have been brash and harsh at times, and even at times arrogant, but he never gave up, and he honestly believed in his people and in himself. Although for all the conflicts about the war and about the man himself, the most interesting part for me in this film was at the end. I thought it was fascinating that this man knew exactly how to run his country and how to talk to his people during the war, but almost immediately after, he simply forgot how to do that. He tried to communicate the same way during peacetime, and no one was receptive to that anymore, and this cost him dearly. That, to me, was simply fascinating. This movie was very well done. In fact, it was so well done on every technical level that it could have easily been a major theatrical release, and nothing would have felt out of place. Unfortunately, I can't really go into any details and specifics as this was my first introduction to this particular figure, but for what it was, this was a very good film, especially for something that only aired on television. I think people who are interested in this subject and this man will like this film a lot, and those who know nothing of either might be equally pleased.